What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Elijah Talks Ball. We are recapping Week 11 in the NFL today, maybe even a little bit of college to touch on that at the end. Ravens, Steelers. Showdown of the AFC North. Steelers take it. TJ Watt, big game. Chiefs get knocked off by the Bills. Josh Allen carries them to a 9-2 record. And then the Chargers and Bengals give us a showdown on Sunday night. We're going to recap it all. And then, of course, we got to give out our game balls at the end of the video. So stick with it for that. Like and subscribe and comment down below. And let me know. Did your favorite team win? Did your favorite player go off? I want to hear it. And let's just jump on into it. So we're going to start with the Sunday night game and the game of the week, Chiefs and Bills. And then we're going to kind of go from the 1 o'clock games all the way through the final 4 o'clock slate. And we're going to start off, of course, with the biggest game. Chiefs and Bills. Showdown of what we could say are the two best teams in the NFL. Definitely in the AFC. Rivalry. Kind of reminiscent of Peyton versus Tom back in the 2000s and 2010s. We got Allen and Mahomes. They always give us a worthy showdown. Definitely makes you feel like you spent your money wisely when you buy that YouTube combo for the NFL Sunday ticket. Bills win this one in Buffalo. This was huge. You know, obviously, you want to beat the best teams in the NFL to kind of get that street cred, which has been a little bit of an issue for the Bills this year. You know, yeah, they're 9-2, but the question was, how many teams have they really beat that were top tier? And then with the Chiefs, questions are still out on them. Even though they were undefeated going into this game, there's a lot of questions of, well, if one play goes the other way or some luck kind of slips up to the other side, you're looking at a team that maybe starts off 0-3. You know, the Ravens lose by a big toe. Obviously, a millisecond late on a pass interference against the Bengals. And then the Falcons, they don't get a couple calls. Regardless, they've been winning these games, which is the stat that matters the most. This is a big showdown. And every year it seems like we see these teams in the playoffs. And yeah, Josh Allen, he's 4-1 against Mahomes during the regular season, but he's 0-3 against the Chiefs in the postseason. So regardless, a big game, and the Bills pull it off. They win 30-21, and something that we haven't seen this year so far is a team slam the door on the Chiefs. They always leave it cracked, and the Chiefs just hang around, and they make the clutch plays that win them the game. And today, on 4th and 2, biggest play of the game, I was sitting there watching it with my dad and my girlfriend, and they were up by 2 points, and they could have kicked a field goal, and they would have gone up 5, but then you would have given Patrick Mahomes the ball back with 2 minutes and a chance to go down and win the game, which you feel like probably would have, but they decided to go for it, which was the right move, whether they got it or not. And Josh Allen drops back, scrambles, breaks like 3 tackles, plows his way into the end zone. They go up 30-21. Huge extra point, by the way, with Tyler Bass, who missed a kick earlier in the game that kind of led it to be only a 2-point lead late in the game. Clutch kick there. Good to see him kind of weather the storm a little bit with his inconsistency. Listen, you can miss 3 kicks in the game, but if you hit the biggest one, it don't really matter. And he did. And then the Bills, Terrell Bernard picks off Mahomes on 4th down to seal the deal. Huge win. They go on to 9-2. Chiefs fall to 9-1. And this game can have huge implications come playoff time, obviously, because at this point, it's quite clear that the Chiefs and the Bills are the cream of the crop of the AFC. And now they both have the same amount of wins, but I would say I feel a little bit more confident with the Bills, with how they're playing. You know, their wins have been a little bit more dominant, and they've shown when they're on, they can play at the elitist level in the NFL. And now you're getting down to the season where Chiefs still got to play the Steelers. They still got to play the Texans. They got to play the Chargers. And then they finish the year at Denver against the Broncos, who, if it wasn't for a block kick, these teams would have the same record. So Chiefs still trying to find their way. They've been putting wins together. Like I said, all that really matters. There's still a lot of questions. And something that I think is going to go a little bit underrated because they had the Devontae Adams trade from the Raiders to the Jets. DeAndre Hopkins goes from the Titans to the Chiefs. But Amari Cooper, when the Bills acquired him, man, was that a huge move to be made, because he showed his presence right away in this game. First drive, catches a beautiful over-the-shoulder one-handed catch to move the chains about 30, 40 yards down the field. And then another huge play down the field where he makes this incredible over-the-shoulder fingertip grab, keeps his feet in bounds. This is what the team has been missing since Stephon Diggs obviously went to the Texans this past year, but last year wasn't quite there as well. And you felt like this team just was missing that key component that they needed to get over the hump. And they have it now. So on top of all that, the Bills, they were without Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, their starting right tackle, obviously Matt Milano on their defense, which you could say is their best defensive player. He's definitely the captain. They did all of that without him today, and they won, by 9 points. That's not nothing, So big win by the Bills. You keep hearing the excuses for the Chiefs. Well, Patrick Mahomes, yeah, he's not playing good, but he's making these clutch plays. And I've been of the conversation that, well, he wouldn't have to make them if he would have just played good throughout the game, because he definitely does not look like the MVP caliber player we've seen from 2018 to 2021. I will say there's no doubt about it that from when Patrick Mahomes started his first season up until they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, he was the best player on the planet. No questions asked. But since they moved on from Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce's gotten a little bit older, he hasn't looked quite right. And people will say, well, he's not really playing with anybody. He doesn't have any solidified number ones to go to. And this year, it's been the same conversation. Rashee Rice goes down. That's his number one guy. Pacheco is injured. Where's their running game going to go? Well, let me break this down, because I think that those takes are a little bit folly, because Patrick Mahomes is still throwing to Travis Kelce, who has shown in multiple games this year, as I would know. I have him on my fantasy team, and I watch every Chiefs game because my girlfriend is a Chiefs fan. So it's only fair that since she sits through the 3-8 Patriots every snap, that I've got to give back and watch the Chiefs. Travis Kelce has shown that he can still play at an elite level. You traded for DeAndre Hopkins, who has been more than worthy of the draft pick they gave up for him. But you also have Xavier Worthy, who you spent a first-round pick on. You have a really solid offensive line, especially the interior, with Trey Smith, Joe Thuney, and Creed Humphrey. Probably the best interior offensive line in the NFL. And then Kareem Hunt has looked like prime Kareem Hunt. And on top of all that, you have an outstanding defense led by Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid, who, it's not really a controversial take to say that he's the best offensive mind in the NFL of all time. So the pieces are most definitely there. And you're also playing without the pressure of, okay, our defense is going to leak and give up 35 points. We've got to go put up 36. No, these games have all been close. They've all been low scoring. So they've had their opportunities and they've been edging them out, which, like I said, is all that really matters. But it always felt like there was something off with this Chiefs team. Really, I would say starting after Atlanta, when they eked out that win, you were wondering, how come this team isn't fully clicking? And it goes back to last year as well. It has to come down to Patrick Mahomes. You just felt like something's not quite off. And, obviously they don't have the caliber of Tyreek Hill when he was in his prime and Travis Kelce when he was in his prime. But you still got those pieces there. And part of me thinks that Defenses have just adjusted, and you see this all across the NFL. Teams are playing a lot more cover two. They're dropping safeties back to guard from the deep pass, which probably affects the Chiefs the most because Mahomes loves to throw it down the field. And I wonder if a little bit is that he isn't as comfortable just taking the underneath. This is what Tom Brady did so well, is if you were going to give him 5 yards, 6 yards on an out route or a slant, he was going to take it every time, because 10 plays at 5 or 6 yards a clip is 50 to 60 yards. That's almost a touchdown drive every time. And you feel like there's just something not clicking to where maybe he's being a little bit impatient, or not wanting to take the layups, just wanting to shoot threes, and you can get streaky. You see this in the NBA. Celtics are a great example. Best 3 perimeter team in the NBA. They can put up 30, 40 and a quarter easy. But some of those shots, once they start hitting the rim and bouncing out, you look at your offense like, okay, we can't get anything going. And that's just how the Chiefs have felt over the past 2 years. Luckily, they've had that great defense, which this is what the Steelers are going through right now. And we'll talk about them later. When you have a top 5 defense and elite coaching, all you need is, above average quarterback play to do some damage, especially if you have players like Mahomes that will just make those 2 to 3 clutch plays to win the game. So I wouldn't say I'm worried about the Chiefs, because they lost this game. They're 9-1. They're going to roll into the playoffs with 2, probably 2, maybe 3 losses, maybe even 1. They're still a very good team, but they just haven't clicked quite yet. And this is kind of reminiscent of the Eagles last year, when they started off 10-1 and then they lost 6 to end the season. They limp into the playoffs and they get whooped by the Bucs in the wild card round. The difference to me, though, this team should continue to get better because, one, they have Patrick Mahomes and they have Andy Reid and they have Chris Jones. They have a ton of leaders on that squad to where, okay, they've been there, they've done that. They know that they're going to be in these big games with a chance to win it, and they have the confidence to say, well, we've done it, we're going to do it again. But also, they're very well coached. And well-coached teams separate themselves as the season goes on. So I'm not worried about the Chiefs, but I am a little bit hesitant to say that they're the best team in the NFL. With the Bills, it feels like this could be their year to get to the Super Bowl. The Ravens have shown they're not consistent. The Steelers, as they are 8-2 and legit, still they're that jury out there going up against Josh Allen. They have the quarterback matchup favorite, with having Russell Wilson, who has played at a good level, but you still always lean quarterback no matter what the team looks like, because quarterback's the most important position. But you have Amari Cooper. You were without Keon Coleman, who, the rookie out of Florida State, has looked great this year. Dalton Kincaid, who you could put him up there as a top 5 tight end. The defense has a ton of injuries. They're starting to get healthier. Matt Milano's probably going to come back in December. And this team's kind of finding their stride. They need home field advantage, though, because that Buffalo Bills stadium, man, when they have a playoff atmosphere and it's cold out and it's just that blue-collar feeling, they are tough to beat. This game was huge in that. So I look at this as probably the AFC Championship matchup. And the Bills took it in the regular season, but regular season only counts for so much, especially a team like the Bills, where it's, as Josh Allen said, just another Week 11 win. And you saw Travis Kelce kind of giving a golf clap at the end of the game. Obviously, he'll play it off as, no big deal, but you can tell it sucks. You want to win this game. So obviously, probably a little bit of pride and ego hurt there, which you like it. You don't want teams, especially your best players, to kind of just accept the fact that you lost your first game of the season in Week 11. But big win for the Bills. I'm sure Bills Mafia is hyped up right now. This was a hurdle that has been tripping you up every single season, and you came out and you bullied them. and you slam the door on them, which a lot of teams just have not done. The Ravens didn't do it. Falcons didn't do it. Bengals didn't do it. The Broncos didn't do it. But the Bills did it. So they move on to 9-2. And now really they control their destiny in a way. Now you obviously have to have somebody knock off the Chiefs again. But you got to feel good if you're a Bills fan right now of how your team's looking. Because you played this game not at full strength and you still pulled out a victory against a top tier team in the NFL. Moving on to the Sunday night game. Chargers and Bengals. Man, did they give us everything we hoped for in a Sunday night football game. I'll tell you what, in the first half, I don't have a lot invested into either of these teams. I really like Jamar Chase. Justin Herbert's awesome. Jim Harbaugh, big fan. Derwin James, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, especially being a free agent coming up this season. Want to see some life out of him because hopefully the Patriots can snag him. I was bummed in the first half. Looked like a blowout, and it looked like the Bengals season was done. Coming into this game, thought they were going to put up an incredible fight to keep their season alive. This was a must-win game for them because obviously with losing, they moved to 4-7, and you pretty much have to run the table at that point to even get to the playoffs as the 7th seed. So winning this game could have gone a long way, but they fell short, and I got to say, as much as this loss sucks for the Bengals, at least you guys showed some heart. You know, the first half, I think it was 21-6, and then Chargers come out, they get another touchdown, missed the extra point, 27-6. It just felt like the Chargers stuck the dagger in and turned it, and they were going to bleed out and die, and their season was going to end right there. But the Bengals, they just stormed back. Joe Burrow lightened the Chargers defense up, which has been very good this season. T. Higgins, huge day. 9 catches, 148 yards. You know, Jamar Chase, not as loud as he was Thursday night, but still a presence where you have to shift over your defense to him, which is where T. Higgins, which this is kind of why I wrote this down, is he one of the more important wide receivers in the league? Because of how he transforms that team. You can't just roll your coverage over to Jamar Chase and expect, all right, well, T. Higgins isn't going to beat us. You can do that when he's out, because who else are they throwing it to? Yeah, Mike Gesicki? Okay, I'll take that one-on-one matchup. Jermaine Burton, rookie, who has shown flashes, but still a lot to be desired there. And then Andre Osivach, which been good in the slot, but we're not talking about, you know, Tyler Boyd back from their Super Bowl run. So when you add T. Higgins into the complexion of this offense, it transforms them massively. And Joe Burrow, man, he's been playing at a lights out level this year, which is part of the reason I want them to make the playoffs so badly, because it's not like this Bengals team has just been getting their ass kicked every week. Minus the Eagles game where it was close late in the game and the Eagles kind of pulled away as they did Thursday night against the Commanders. The Bengals lost to the Patriots week 1, 16-10. Close game. And then, you know, if the defender is a half a second later, they win that game against the Chiefs. Both the games against the Ravens, the first one in overtime, the holder drops the snap on the game-winning kick, and then the Bengals go down, kick the game-winning field goal right after that. And then Thursday night last week, they lose on a 2-point play where they had a pass interference and a roughing the passer on the same play, and neither of them got called. The game ended. So this team has been in every single game. They just have not been able to pull through. And you got to wonder, is this a coaching issue? You know, Zach Taylor brought them to a Super Bowl, has had them in the playoffs pretty much every year that Joe Burrow's been healthy. But the worrisome thing, and we saw this at the beginning of the year, it feels like he just does not have this team ready to play. And the biggest sign of that is your slow starts. You can't start slow every single year, especially with the landscape of the AFC, which even though down a little bit right now, tons of good teams. You got the Bills, you got the Dolphins, who Luckily for the Bengals, Tua got hurt earlier in the year, so that kind of helped their record fall off a little bit. But you still got the Broncos, you got the Texans, you got the Chargers, you got the Chiefs, you got the Ravens, you got the Steelers. You can't afford to start slow, and they did that again tonight. And they stormed back, but they just couldn't pull it off. And for a team that, like the Chargers, has been labeled having a curse and coining the phrase chargering, which it felt like was going to happen tonight. And Chargers fans, you've got to be so ecstatic at the fact that you ended up pulling off this game, because how many times have we seen over the past 5 years? You get up big, you blow the lead, and then you end up losing the game in heartbreaking fashion. And it seemed like we were driving down that road today, but the defense comes up big, makes a couple big plays. Evan McPherson, who is usually money in big-time situation, misses 2 huge kicks that would have given them a 6-point lead. You give the ball back to the Chargers. Justin Herbert, which we'll dive into him in a second, pause, makes 2 huge plays to Ladd McConkey, who's just, we talk about Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. Ladd McConkey has been lights out so far this season. 2 huge completions, and then J.K. Dobbins, one of the better stories of the NFL this season, starts off his rookie year, has a pretty solid one, over 800 yards. Looks like he's going to be the featured back in Baltimore, but then tears his ACL and MCL, has to miss the whole year. Next season, misses over half the season with another knee injury, comes back, what was it, week 1 last year, tears his Achilles. So he pretty much misses 3 straight seasons of football. The Chargers roll the dice on him. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, coach in Michigan, saw JK firsthand at Ohio State, said, we need this guy. First 2 games of the season, 130 yards, couple touchdowns each. And he seals the deal tonight against the Bengals on what looked like about a 30-yard touchdown run. Really nice. And, everybody was saying, oh, you got to get down and milk out the clock. But what did we see tonight? That kicks are not guaranteed. And we saw all across the league. And last week and this week, the Broncos, game-winning field goal blocked. The Bears, game-winning field goal blocked. So who's to say that the Chargers, or the Bengals, don't make a big play and block that kick? If you got an opportunity, especially where you'll go up 7 points and there's only 18 seconds left, you run that ball into the end zone and you secure the fact that, our defense has been playing pretty good this year. We're going to hold them in 18 seconds and we're going to win this game. So huge play by J.K. Dobbins. And the Chargers did not charge her. And that's the biggest sign for hope of this franchise right now. You moved to 7-3. And really one of those losses, 2 of those losses, one against Arizona, where that game was yours for the taking and you just couldn't pull it out, but came down to the final seconds game-winning kick by Chad Ryland, of all people, who, as I know as a Pats fan, really struggled last year. Huge kick to win that game. And then the game against the Steelers, where you were without both your tackles and Justin Herbert was pretty much playing on one leg. So the Chargers have looked really good this year, and Jim Harbaugh has done this everywhere he goes. At Stanford, turns that program around, which we all think of Stanford as the school of scholars. We don't think that, you're going there to play football to make it to the NFL. No, you're probably going there to become an architect or lawyer or doctor. I mean, that's a high-level Ivy League school. Well, he turns that program around, gets them on the winning trajectory. Then he comes to the NFL and immediately flips the San Francisco 49ers franchise on their head, gets them into the Super Bowl 2 years after taking over. I think the record was 44-19 during his tenure there. Still don't know why the Niners decided to move on from him, but that's a whole nother story. He goes to Michigan, gets that program back to its winning culture, ends up winning the Natty last year with a team that just seemed like it was so cohesive and so, together around their head coach. He built this identity. He brought in these young guys that are obsessed with football, that don't care if they don't touch the ball once in the game as long as they win. They get the Natty. Now he comes to the Chargers. And what have we labeled the Chargers as being for pretty much the past 20 years since they moved on from Marty Schottenheimer? We thought they were cheap. And they get coaches like Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, guys that, yeah, they're not going to command 10 million plus a year. And you can kind of control them a little bit better than a Bill Parcells and a Bill Belichick. Well, they go in and they pay the big bucks for Jim Harbaugh. He brings in Jesse Minter, his defensive coordinator at Michigan, former coach on the Ravens staff as well. And boy, has it been worth every penny, because we saw it tonight. That culture has just changed, and they're no longer charging. This was a game that they would have 100% lost in past years, and they pulled it off. And Justin Herbert, we're going to talk about him right now. That first half felt like he was the best player in the NFL. I mean, that guy, how many quarterbacks in NFL history come out of the draft at 6'6", 240 pounds with an absolute cannon as a right arm and can scramble with the best of them? Well, Justin Herbert is one of them. And in the first half, 9 for 10, with 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, just throwing lasers over the middle. And he looked like the best player on the field, and he was in that first half. Kind of fell off in the second half, but ended up making some big plays in the second half to get them in position to win the game. But if you get that kind of play out of Justin Herbert with your defense that was without Khalil Mack, arguably your best defensive player tonight, watch out. I'll say that much. Because this team is not going to get to the playoffs and lose in the wild card round to the Jags like they did with Brandon Staley. Now, this team feels like they're still a year or two away with all the cuts that they had to make. Keep in mind, they got rid of Keenan Allen, their longtime receiver, Hall of Fame level guy. Mike Williams goes to the Jets. Now he's on the Steelers. You move on from those two guys. They were your stalwarts at the wide receiver position. You release Austin Eckler, who has been your workhorse back over the past 5-6 years. And it doesn't really matter, because Jim Harbaugh has led this team the way that you would want a CEO head coach to go. You know, everybody wants that up-and-coming Ben Johnson, or, people are talking about Bobby Slowick, these coordinators that they're going to control one side of the ball. They're going to call the plays. You don't have to worry about going and finding a new offensive coordinator because you've got him as your offensive coach. But Jim Harbaugh has just commanded the commanded the respect of this team, and it's showing up on the field. So, big time win. This team should only get better. Like I said with the Chiefs, good coaching matters. And this team is starting to find its stride a little bit. They want to pound the ball. They want to beat you up physically. That's why they drafted Joe Alt at 5 overall. People were coming out saying, they're going to get Malik Neighbors, or they're going to draft Marvin Harrison, or maybe even Brock Bowers. Guys, have we learned anything from Jim Harbaugh's tenure at every place that he's went? He doesn't care about having the flashy receivers. Their number one receiver last year was Roman Wilson. And he is a healthy scratch on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. He views offensive linemen as the tip of the spear, as he said, skill positions. And they've built a wall up there. And that was a huge difference in the game. I mean, Joe Burrow was getting peppered every single snap, where Justin Herbert seemed like he had a clean pocket 85% of the time. And in that first half, boy, he was lighting it up. So you feel good. I got a really good buddy of mine. He's a Chargers fan. He's lived through the curse. He's lived through all these top defenses, top offenses, bounced in the first round, bounced in the divisional round. Feels different right now. And what's the ceiling for this team right now? Not quite sure. At receiver, Quentin Johnston, your first round pick last year, he's definitely coming along. Ladd McConkey, he looks great, but you don't have, an offense that's going to light scoreboards up, but you still put up 34 tonight without everything. So, and your running game, not quite what it has been throughout the season tonight or last night. So you feel like they didn't even play their best game and they still beat a team that had everything to fight for, which we viewed coming into the season. And it's not like, they look like the Jags where we thought, oh, maybe they'll sneak into the playoffs and they're 2-8. Now the Bengals, even though they're 4-7, have been a pretty good football team this year. They just haven't been able to win the close games. So Chargers, big win tonight, 7-3, and now the Bengals 4-7. Not quite sure where you go from here. I'll tell you one thing. If I'm the Bengals and I'm moving on from Zach Taylor at the end of this season, I'm giving Bill Belichick a call. And if he doesn't answer, I'm giving him another call. And if he doesn't answer, I'm giving him another call. And if he doesn't answer, I'm figuring out where he's at. And I'm showing up with whatever he wants to come coach the Bengals. Because if you put Bill Belichick in charge of that defense and you bring in Josh McDaniels as his OC to help Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase get over the hump, watch out, NFL. That's what I'm doing. Moving on. Let me sip my Patriots coffee real quick. Pumpkin spice creamer. Delightful. It's snowing outside right now. Let's talk about Steelers and the Ravens. Coming into this season, what did we all think was going to happen in the AFC North? Well, we thought the Ravens and Steelers were going to be 1-2. Ravens and the Bengals, we thought they were going to be 1-2, whichever order your heart desired. And that the Steelers were probably going to jockey with the Browns for third or fourth. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. That was the quarterback controversy in Pittsburgh this offseason. And we can all look back and say, they made the right move, moving to Russell Wilson. And even though Justin Fields looked good in the first 6 games, but people gave Tomlin a hell of a lot of shit for it. And Tomlin said after that Monday night game against the Jets, this is why I get paid the big bucks. Because since he's put Russell Wilson in, they are 4-0. And quite frankly, some of these games haven't even been close. I can't remember a team in recent history for the Steelers that looks as cohesive and as involved and as believed as much belief as they have shown this year in recent memories. I can't think of one. Going up against the Ravens, who on any given Sunday feels like they can do one of two things. They can put 45 up on the board and beat a team like the Bills on Sunday, Monday night, or they can choke and lose to the Raiders in the fourth quarter. If this Ravens team plays to its potential, it's tough to believe anybody's going to beat them. But something that's just going unnoticed right now, and it's really hurting them. Mike McDonald coaching in Seattle right now, boy genius. That defense is not the same. And they've got a lot of the same players. Really, the only one that they don't have is Patrick Queen, who ironically is on the Steelers. But you brought in Nate Wiggins in the draft this offseason. You re-signed, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Justin Madubuike, their defensive lineman. You still have Roquan. You still have Kyle Hamilton. You still have Marlon Humphrey. You still have Marcus Williams. You did lose Geno Stone. But still a top-tier amount of talent on that defense. They're bleeding like a sieve right now. And even though they only held the Steelers to 18, they just couldn't make stops when they needed to. And they did a good job in the red zone holding the Steelers to field goals. But that offense, which has been the strong suit of any team this season, besides maybe the Lions, the Ravens' offense has looked like the best in the league. 10 points against the Steelers. And what have we seen multiple times from Lamar Jackson over his tenure as Ravens QB? Despite all the MVPs, despite all the incredible plays, record-breaking games, he struggles in big-time games. We saw it last year against the Chiefs. Part of that was play calling, but seemed like he forgot how to play football that won him the MVP. What was it, 2020, I believe? AFC Championship. He put up crazy numbers, but they lost to the Titans. Just didn't make the plays he needed to. And then again today against the Steelers. I mean, under 50% completion percentage, turnover. This is the big question mark with the Ravens. We know that they're going to be in it, just like the Steelers, just like the Chargers now, just like, the Bills. Good coaching is going to win you games. And they're well coached. They have a lot of talent. But can you win the big games? Can you make the big plays? Why are the Ravens 7-4 and why are the Chiefs 9-1? Because even though the Chiefs overall have looked like a worse team than the Ravens, they've made the plays when it really matters. And Lamar Jackson has just failed to do that over his tenure as QB. They've got to figure out what's going on. And Lamar Jackson, more than anybody, I'm sure feels the same way. But that's the big question mark with this Ravens team. Because they're going to make the playoffs. But if you can't beat the Steelers right now, how the hell you expect to beat the Bills? How the hell you expect to beat the Chiefs, the Chargers? And then even if you got to the Super Bowl, can we really bank on them to beat the Eagles, to beat the Lions? They certainly have the potential, but we haven't seen it in big games. Shit all you want on the Bills. Yeah, they're 4-1 against the Chiefs in the regular season, Josh Allen, Mahomes era, and they're 0-3 in the playoffs. They've showed up in these playoff games. There's no doubt about that. The Ravens have not. So, as a Ravens fan, I'm a little bit up in arms right now. If I'm in your shoes. I don't know what to make of this team. Any Sunday, we look like the best team in the league. Another Sunday, we look like a wild card team that's going to get bounced. So, I have confidence that John Harbaugh is going to right the ship. But definitely does not help your case that you lost to your division rival who, this game was for first place, that we all viewed coming into this season was probably going to finish last in the division. Russell Wilson, since leaving Seattle where he was a top 5 quarterback, struggled mightily in Denver. Had a decent year last year, but signs with the Steelers for $1 million. And then you brought in Justin Fields for a bag of chips. And sometimes people say, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you've got none. And that's kind of how it felt at the beginning of the season for the Steelers. But then they jump out to that 3-0 start. Justin Fields looking pretty good. Russell Wilson comes back. After Justin Fields loses a couple games. And now they've rattled off 4 straight. But I think they actually might have 2 quarterbacks. I mean, what do the Steelers do well? They run the ball. They are dominant at the line of scrimmage. But then on the outside, you got Mike Williams and you got George Pickens. 2 jump ball masters. It's not 50-50 when they go up for it. It's 75-25. And Russell's just been doing that. He's been dropping these rainbows down the field, and these guys have been making plays. And then you bring in Justin Fields at the end of the game to milk the clock out, and you have a couple QB powers, a read option. So, seems like they've kind of got best of both worlds right now. They have red zone packages for Fields, who is one of the more physical quarterbacks that we've ever seen in our lifetime. Not many guys that can run a 4.4 at 220 pounds at quarterback position and truck you. Then you got Russell Wilson, who's just going to feed those guys on the perimeter, and then Pat Fryer moved over the middle. So, Steelers, big win, man. 8-2. You feel really good about it. That's for sure. They're legit. I had questions about them going into that game against the Commanders. All right, well, 6-2, but how good are they? Well, they beat a Commanders team who was humming. Now they beat your division rival, which we could all probably say we think the Ravens are a better team. And they dominated them. So, division is theirs for the taking right now. Super excited for that Christmas matchup. Chiefs-Steelers. Good defense, good running game, and above average quarterback play. Going to get you in the playoffs, and we've seen it happen many times. Going to win you a Super Bowl. Broncos with Peyton Manning. Yeah, Peyton's mind was still great, but his physical traits were falling off. They won the Super Bowl. Tom Brady, first few years of his career. That was a defensive-led team. Brad Johnson, the Bucks. Trent Dilfer, Ravens. you don't think of those guys, obviously Peyton and Tom, yeah. But at that time in their career, nobody thought of them as top 5 QBs. Obviously not Trent Dilfer. Great defense, good coaching, and a running game. That will win you a lot of big games. And it did again for the Steelers. Moving on, we're going to kind of speed things up a little bit here. First, well, I guess not first. We talked about Ravens and Steelers, but moving on to the other 1 o'clock games. Rams, Patriots, baby. Patriots fan here, big time. Rams, they escaped with the win. And that one hurt a little bit. But we all expected the Rams to come in this game and win. As a Patriots fan, what do I want to see? I want to see this team show fight. And they showed exactly that. And if it wasn't for Matthew Stafford playing like an MVP Hall of Fame level player today, Patriots probably would have won this game. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua just decimated the Patriots defense. Both over 100 yards, 3 TDs between the two of them. Matthew Stafford carving us up left and right. The issue, though, in this game for me, over everything, Patriots defense, man. They have not looked right. And yeah, we're missing Jawan Bentley, missing Kyle Duggar, we're missing Jabril Peppers. We got Barmore back. That was nice. So there are some injuries. And we did expect maybe the team to fall off a little bit, losing Bill Belichick, the greatest defensive mind of all time. But you still felt like you had a lot of the infrastructure that was there last year, where you had a defense that was really solid. And over the past few weeks, man, they got more holes than Swiss cheese. It's concerning, especially with a defensive head coach like Gerard Mayo. They're just missing something. So that sucks for sure. But on the bright side, we got Drake May. And Drake May showed why he was the number 3 overall pick this year. Every week, you're seeing this guy just get better and better. And keep in mind, he's doing this with arguably the worst unit offensively in the league, especially when you factor in the coaches, which I believe AVP, Ben McAdoo, TJ McCarthy, I forget their QB coach's name. They've been developing him really well. But at receiver, I'll give you $50 if you can name one of the receivers on their team. The running game has been non-existent at stretches. And the offensive line, we got a different combo every week. And he is still going in every single game and getting better and better. And the most encouraging part of all of this is he's playing from the pocket. And this is what seems like he wants to do. During his career at UNC, he was one of the best quarterbacks throwing over the middle and in the red zone. And nowadays in the NFL, we want the Caleb Williams. We want the Jaden Daniels, the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes. But what we don't factor in is that Mahomes and Allen are both elite players from the pocket. But they can escape and make these crazy plays when they need to. But they want to beat you from inside the pocket. And that's where you're going to win games in the NFL. Well, Drake May has been doing that with, subpar weapons. And he's standing in there and he's firing seeds over the middle. The game ended on a pick, which he kind of sailed it, which I think is something that Pats fans are going to live with a little bit, is he's going to have some throws that you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell? But so does Josh Allen. So does Matthew Stafford. So does Patrick Mahomes. But guess what? They make incredible plays to offset those. And Drake did a lot of that today. Over the past 2 games, even though his stats aren't crazy, the efficiency, I think both games over 70% completion percentage, just taking the underneath stuff. We don't have a lot of guys that are getting good open down the field. We definitely don't have the offensive line to protect for that. But he's taking what the defense is giving him. And then when he needs to, he steps up in the pocket as he's getting hit, kind of sidearms it for a first down. The exciting part about all of this is going into last offseason, Who wanted to come play for the Patriots? Nobody. You had 3 new coaches at the most important positions. You had a roster that everybody seemed as undesirable. You had a new GM. You were already 4-13. You had no infrastructure on offense. So why would Calvin Ridley want to come play with us? Why would, a wide receiver that requests a trade like Brandon Ayuk, why would he want to come play with us? How's he going to get the ball? Well, we've seen that now. Drake May is giving this team something to get excited about, and I think players as well. He's a guy's guy. People seem to really like him. And now we got T. Higgins, who's going to be a free agent this offseason. And that would pair perfectly with Drake May, somebody he could just kind of maybe even be a little bit off target, still going to snag the ball, but just your big dominant X receiver. But you got players like Trey Smith or Javon Holland, the guard for the Chiefs and the safety for the Dolphins, where, one, we have the cap space to pay them all the money. But now it's like, okay, well, I'm going from the Chiefs. Yeah, they were really good, but going to the Patriots, maybe they're going to be third place in the division consistently. It's like, now they might have something here. With a players coach like Gerard Mayo, this is a big stretch for the Patriots right here. You got to start at least being competitive in these games, because do you want to win? Yes. But do you want to get a good draft position? Yes, as well. But you want to be competitive in these games at the least. So if you're going to lose a game like you did to the Rams 28-22, you can live with that as a Pats fan right now, because you know that you're probably going to be in a position next year where you're fighting for a playoff spot. And now in this offseason, you can get some of those players that are going to help you get over the edge. So Rams, they battle back to 5-5. Big win for them. Patriots, you showed heart. And that's all you can ask for. Moving on, we got the Packers and the Bears. And what did we see last week with the Chiefs and Broncos? Upset alert, block kick to win the game. Same thing with the Bears and the Packers. Packers blocked the game-winning kick, and they still own them. Jordan Love has bought stock from Aaron Rodgers to keep ownership in Green Bay over Chicago. Man, if I'm a Bears fan, this one sucks. Caleb Williams showed a lot of heart today or yesterday. Really just with all the negativity swirling, you fire Shane Aldrin. DJ Moore looks like he's got one foot out the door. Matt Eberflus has got basically his whole body out the door. And you put in a couple really good drives against the Packers defense is pretty good. And you were in position to win this game. But the Packers, they just pull it off. And that's what good teams do. They just find out a way to win. And they did just that. Packers, the one thing I am concerned about, Jordan Love's got to stop turning the ball over. He makes incredible plays, incredible throws, like we just mentioned, that you'll live with some turnovers. But when you get $50 to $60 million a year, you're expected to, you're going to have some hiccups. You're going to throw 8 to 10 picks a year. Okay. But when you start approaching that 14 to 18 amount during a season, you can't have that. Especially as one of the highest paid guys in the NFL, especially as a team that we feel like can win the Super Bowl. So if he could start limiting those turnovers, we could take him a little bit more seriously. But for now, err with caution. And for the Bears, similar to the Patriots, at least you showed some heart. It's a great sign. Jags-Lions, not much to talk about in this game. Lions put up a 50-burger over the Jags, 52-6. Second 50-burger of the year. They also have a couple 40-point games as well. They've just been lighting teams up. Best offense in the league. And we wanted to know how Jared Goff would respond after throwing 5 picks in a win against the Houston Texans. Still one of the crazier games I've seen. Well, he comes back, goes 24 for 29, 412 yards, and 4 touchdowns. No turnovers. Freaking insane. They didn't even run the ball a ton, and they still almost got 200 yards of rushing. That's crazy. 600 yards of offense. Second time this year. You got to think this team is Super Bowl bound. Who's going to stop them? There's not one team going up against the Lions right now this season that I'd feel like the Lions would lose. To me, they're the best team in the NFL. And yeah, the Jags, they're not good. But what do you do to bad teams if you're a good team? You beat the shit out of them. And they did exactly that. Jags, on the other hand, oh, well, it certainly seems like Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson's reign is over in Jacksonville. This team is not good. And they weren't good with Trevor Lawrence, and they're much worse with Mac Jones. So, definitely seems like a 10-year change or regime change coming up with the Jags. I mean, who do you go for? I would say, obviously, Ben Johnson, and maybe he takes a smaller market. I can't see him going to a team like the Jets or a team like the Cowboys. You know, he's seemed like he's had cold feet becoming a head coach, so maybe you go to a team like the Jags. Maybe you can fix Trevor Lawrence. You still got some pieces there that you feel good about. Outside of that, I'm worried if I'm a Jags fan for the future because Trevor Lawrence has shown no signs of life. And you have a lot of talent. So maybe a coach comes in there and flips it up. Moving on, we got the Raiders and the Dolphins. Dolphins are in it, baby. Obviously, when Tua got hurt, derailed their season. They kind of stayed alive. You know, they beat the Patriots. Close game. Starting Tyler Huntley. I think they were 2-4. When Tua came back, you're like, okay, there's some life. But then you lost to the Cardinals on a game-winning field goal. You lost to the Bills on a game-winning field goal. But now you put back-to-back wins in. You beat the Rams on Monday night, which was a huge win. And you come out and you whoop the Raiders. 4-6. Feel pretty good about the Dolphins right now. Tua, even though they lost those first two games, he's picked up right where he left off as that guy that we thought was going to be an MVP halfway through the season last year. I'll tell you one thing that gets me excited if I'm a Dolphins fan. The defense is playing with a physicality that I haven't seen since Mike McDaniel took over. They're flying around, they're hitting people. Seems like this Dolphins team has got a little bit of an edge, which has been the critique that we've had against them. So that 7th seed, even though the Broncos are 6-5, that wild card is number 7 is still much up for grabs. And you still got to play the Patriots, play them next week. You feel like you'll probably win that game. You'll be one game out of 500 at that point. So, Dolphins fans, you're in it. And your team looks good. You know, it's kind of like the Bengals thing. Even though you got a better record, it's like, okay, if we can start winning some of these games, we could be in it because our team is playing well. We're just coming up short in some of these nail-biting games. Raiders, not going to spend a lot of time with you because there's not much to be excited about except Brock Bowers. 13 catches, 124 yards, touchdown. He's been the best tight end this year. Kind of hard to argue that. Maybe Kittle as the only other one. Brock Bowers has been lights out. You got an exciting infrastructure for a young QB to come play. You know, you got a good left tackle. You got a great tight end, Jacoby Myers. You know, you have an extra 3rd-round pick from trading Devontae Adams. So you got some pieces, but, you know, your season's over. You're jockeying for best draft position now. But Brock Bowers, man, looks like the real deal. Next game up, we got the Browns and the Saints. Jameis Winston, almost 400 yards. Passing through the air, no turnovers. But somehow they come up short by 3 touchdowns in a game where your quarterback throws 2 touchdowns and 400 yards with, you know, pretty efficient pass attempt to completion percentage. And that's because of Taysom Hill. Almost 180 total or over 180 total yards, 3 touchdowns. Kind of turns back the wheel of time to when Drew Brees and Sean Payton were using him in different gadget packages. The Rizzler gets his 2nd straight win since taking over as the interim head coach. Saints 2-0 since firing Dennis Allen. It's exciting. I got to say, the thing that gets me going for this upcoming draft, besides Travis Hunter going to the Patriots, Shedeur to the Saints. Doesn't it feel like Shedeur Sanders would just look really good in a Saints uniform, playing in New Orleans, and they've got a coaching position open, so maybe they bring Dion down there to coach his son? I'm not sure if that would happen, but you got Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed will come back. Alvin Kamara's shown that he's still got some left in the tank. Your offensive line pretty good. You got to feel like this is a pretty good destination for a quarterback. The thing that trips you up is Derek Carr's contract. You restructured it. $70 million on the dead cap if you were to release him this year. So, feels like you're stuck with Derek Carr, but maybe you make a switch. Next up, we got the Vikings and the Titans. Sam Darnold gets back to business. 3 total touchdowns, no turnovers against the Titans defense, which is pretty underrated because the Titans are 2-8, but the defense has been definitely one of the better units in the NFL. Sam Darnold gets back to the basics. And that's been the concern over the past few weeks is he's starting to revert back to New York Jets Sam. Bad turnovers, red zone picks. Not today. How much longer does Will Levis have as the Titans QB? I mean, definitely the rest of the season. There's not really a quarterback that you feel super desirable for coming up in this draft. And you feel like there's definitely something there with Levis. He's had these boneheaded interceptions at times, but it seems like that part of his game is starting to get a little bit worked out. I feel like I keep riding Levis a little bit, definitely for the rest of the season, but why not? You're 2-8. Don't go back to Mason Rudolph. That makes 0 sense. Will Levis has shown that he can play quarterback in this league. He's just got to limit some of those stupid mistakes, which he's been better at. Vikings are just a better team, and that's why they won. We're kind of moving through this. Colts and Jets. How many storylines are better than the Jets being 3-8? I'd say 0. Man, this is enjoyable as a Pats fan. And Jets fans, I feel bad for you. I really do. I got no issue with Jets fan. The organization is my beef. And you brought in Aaron Rodgers. And you thought all your problems were going to go away. And it's just getting worse and worse. Like, at what point does Aaron Rodgers look in the mirror and say, I'm the issue? And I saw some comments during the Colts and Jets highlights game last night on YouTube saying, Aaron Rodgers is not the problem. He's done pretty good this year. Like, guys, even though his stats might be decent, Russell Wilson last year, this quarterback is a shell of himself. He's not pushing the ball down the field. He's only throwing slants, hitches, outs, short seam routes. You got to move on from Aaron Rodgers at the end of this season. I don't see how you could bring him back. He's clearly toxic to that locker room. Not saying that he's a bad guy, but you fired your coach. You've gone 1-5 since then. You brought in Devontae Adams. Same record, 1-5 since then. You've forgotten how to run the ball. You did tackling drills this season or this week in practice to get back to the fundamentals. And Anthony Richardson just trucks 2 of your DBs for touchdowns, 1 to win the game pretty much. And then Aaron Rodgers takes a sack to end the game. It's just brutal right now. There's no physicality on this Jets team. And this is the team that we thought was going to hang their hat on the physicality. And I think you got to bring Rex Ryan back, or a coach like that. One of these coaches that big personality can weather the storm of the New York media, tell them to kiss your ass, and just go out and play football. On the flip side, the other AR, full magazine on this guy, Anthony Richardson. Best game as a professional so far. 20 for 30, 250 yards, a couple touchdowns, a couple on the ground. What a game for the young quarterback who, since he tapped out in that game a couple weeks ago and they benched him, felt like there was a lot of despair in Indianapolis. And you start Joe Flacco for a couple weeks because you thought that he was going to give your team the best chance to win, and you didn't. And then Anthony Richardson, maybe he just needed to take a deep breath, sit back, realize, okay, like, I've got to do what I do best, which is run the ball and throw the ball over the middle of the field. He does not have touch to hit these short passes. But Shane Steichen did a good job of scheming up stuff over the middle and using his legs to where now they're still in it a little bit. And obviously, as a Colts fan and as a football fan, you want Anthony Richardson to work out because the talent, you can argue, there's not many guys that have more talent than Anthony Richardson in the NFL. So, big win for them. Jets. Oh, that white flag's starting to look like it's got some shit stains on it too. Falcons and Broncos, we're now on the 4 o'clock games. We only got 2 more games to go and then game balls. Broncos beat the shit out of the Falcons, 38-6. Bo Nix, 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Falcons, ay. Not sure what to make of you, but I'll tell you one thing that was pretty evident in this game. This was a game between frauds and teams that are legit. Broncos are a legit team. They should have beat the Chiefs last week. They whooped the Falcons this week. You're 6-5. You really feel like you should be 7-4. Broncos are good, man. Sean Payton. That culture is hard-nosed. Bo Nix is not getting all the credit because you got Drake May and Caleb Williams who were taking up all the headlines, but Bo Nix has come along really well. And like the Patriots, he's not doing it with a ton of weaponry. So, good to see that out of Bo Nix if you're a Broncos fan. Falcons, I'm not sure what to make of you. You know, you draft Michael Penix at the top of the draft in the first round where you could have had a good defensive piece or another offensive lineman or even another receiver, which you probably didn't need, but you could have. And you drafted Michael Penix when you just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year mega deal. At what point did we start saying, what do we see in Michael Penix? Can he bring us further than Kirk Cousins? And when Kirk is on, he's great. But what's to say that Michael Penix couldn't take this team to the next level? And this is why drafting him was such a head scratcher. It's because you felt like it was going to lead to this where once the Falcons, if they lose a few games, which we thought they would probably go on a couple game losing streak at some point with Kirk Cousins not looking good, now you're immediately going to start talking about Michael Penix. And it's not good for your locker room. And he's a pro-ready guy right now. And I'll tell you one thing out of this game, the one team that is most excited about this are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because I'll tell you what, if the Falcons and Bucs played again right now for all the marbles, I'd take the Bucs. And they lost God when they've been without Evans, and they went through a stretch of teams. They played the Chiefs, they played the Niners, and I forget they played another high-quality team back to back to back, and they barely lost those games. Bucs got it still. And now with the Falcons slipping up recently, Bucs still got a shot at this thing. So, Falcons, you better watch out, man. Bucs, they're going to come nipping. 10-7 probably wins this division. I feel like the Bucs could get there. And you guys still got to play again later, so Mike Evans is going to be coming back. That team's starting to figure it out. Falcons, you're going the wrong direction. Final game before game balls, we got the Seahawks and the Niners, and just a round of applause for Geno Smith. He finally gets his first win against the San Francisco 49ers, leads them on a game-winning drive, runs it in with 12 seconds left from about 10 yards out. Big-time win for the Seahawks. That division, Cardinals 6-4, Rams 5-5, Seahawks 5-5, Niners 5-5. Anybody's game right now. And I'll tell you what, the team I feel best about right now is the Cardinals. And the team I feel worse about right now, probably the Niners. If not now, this year, when is it going to be for the San Fran? It feels like they missed their window. And they still got a ton of great players and a really good coach. But feels like you just gave all that money to Ayuk. He's not even playing. Debo's getting older. McCaffrey, the wear and tear is showing. You got to pay Brock Purdy. You know, your defensive guys, you know, their contracts are all going to start hitting here pretty soon. I got a red flag waved on the Niners right now. You keep feeling like they're going to figure it out and start rolling some teams because this is the time of the year that they usually do it, but it's just not happening. So, yeah. Not looking good for the Niners. Seahawks, good win. What can you ask for? You're back in the mix. All right. This video has gone pretty long. So we're going to give out our game balls, and then we're going to go chill. And offensively, game ball, Taysom Hill. Like I said, almost 190 total yards, 8 catches, 50 yards, 138 on the ground, 3 touchdowns. What a game. I mean, when's the last time we saw Taysom Hill dominate like this? Probably that COVID year when they played the Bucs in the playoffs. And he's coming in on almost every 3rd and short and 4th and short. And he looked incredible yesterday. Saints still got some exciting pieces, like I mentioned earlier. Defensively, we got Kirby Joseph, safety for the Lions. Gets an interception and moves his total to 7 on the year, league leading through week 11. Already got 7 interceptions. And you've gone through a bye. So, how many's going to finish with 11? And if he gets 11 interceptions, we got to talk about defensive player of the year. Has a touchdown as well. Pretty good job by Kirby Joseph. And then for the coaches, got to give it to Jim Harbaugh. We started the episode with it, and we're finishing it with it. The Chargers do not charger anymore. And Jim Harbaugh is the reason for that. So, good win for the Chargers. Shout out Taysom Hill. Shout out Kirby Joseph. Great week of football. Great slate tonight. Texans, Cowboys. You know, Cowboys obviously without Dak. Nico Collins is back tonight, though. That's going to be exciting to watch. Texans, you got to get back in the win column here. Coming off of a tough Sunday night loss to the Detroit Lions. You feel like the Texans are just going to put it on the table and tell the Cowboys to deal with it. So, guys, enjoy Monday night. Hope you enjoyed this recap. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. Like I said earlier in the video, any critiques, anything you just thought stood out in the video or in week 11. Love to hear it, guys. Stay safe out there. Enjoy your Monday. Peace out.